Welcome to another episode of Truth from the Trail. Usually when you think about a trail, you think you're out in the wilderness, you're up on a mountainside, you're in a valley. And not all trails are rural. Not all trails are out there in the middle of nowhere. Some trails are urban. And right now, I am just off the Ocklawaha Trail. I didn't stutter, you heard that. Ocklawaha is a greenway. It's the Ocklawaha Greenway here in Hendersonville, North Carolina, my hometown. And it's about a 6.5 mile paved greenway that connects a couple of parks here in Hendersonville and actually goes either beside or through two other parks. I'm currently in Jackson Park, which I love. Right after Hurricane Helene 2 years ago, this park was destroyed. It has a beautiful 18-hole disc golf course and softball and baseball fields and a playground, and all of that was just demolished. And the city Parks and Recreation, along with other groups, have done just a great job of cleaning this park up and getting it back to a pretty good usable condition. Ocklawaha is a Cherokee word that means slowly running muddy water. Now that's inviting, right? Well, that's what the word means, but it's a great little greenway, and this area is just so rich in walking trails that are rural and out there, and then many that are right here. So I'm enjoying this sunny, rare sunny afternoon here in Hendersonville at Jackson Park. While I'm here, I want to share with you a story from the Bible, and I believe it's a true story, but as we've said all along, if you don't want to think it's true, that's your business, but you can at least learn something from this story. If you've been watching and keeping up with us, in our last episode, we saw the tragic beheading of John the Baptist. John was Jesus's cousin, and several of his disciples were also disciples of John. And so this was a tragedy for them to hear about. Word got back to Jesus. The disciples had been very, very busy doing ministry. Jesus had been busy doing ministry. Everybody was tired. The disciples had been so busy that some of them had not even eaten. And so Jesus said, let's go to a desolate place. Let's just get out there and get away from things, some much needed rest. So they went to such a place, and before they could even get there, the local people heard about Jesus, and he had such a reputation. They wanted to be there, and crowds began to gather. People came from the nearby villages and the towns and through the countryside, and so they get there thinking they're going to rest, and there's this mob of people. When Jesus saw these people, he had compassion for them and felt like they just looked like sheep without a shepherd. So he began to minister to them, and he healed the sick, and he dealt with issues they had and problems they had and ministered to them. Well, it got late in the day, and some of his disciples came to him and said, Jesus, we're out here in the middle of nowhere, and it's late in the day, and these people are going to want something to eat. We need to dismiss them, tell them to go so they'll have time to go into the countryside, these villages and towns, and get themselves something to eat. And Jesus said, no, don't do that. You give them something to eat. And they said, we can't do that. I mean, even if we went into town and bought enough food for this crowd, it would take 8 months of a person's salary to buy enough food for this mob of people. And finally, one of the disciples named Andrew had a little boy there that had offered his lunch. And he said, we have this lad, and he has his lunch of 2 fish and 5 loaves. And Jesus said, bring it to me. And they did. And Jesus took that little sack lunch of 2 fish and 5 loaves, and he held it up, and he blessed it. And then he began to break it and gave to his disciples and said, put the people in groups of 50 or 100 and start passing out this food and feed them. And so the disciples did that. They started taking the food, and as they did, the food multiplied. And every person had plenty to eat. And they ate till they were satisfied. And when they finished eating, they took baskets and they went around and they collected 12 baskets full of leftovers. And in that crowd that they had fed with 2 fish and 5 loaves were about 5,000 men alone, not counting the women and children. We'll stop our story there because, I mean, this is one of the more familiar stories in all of the New Testament. And if you know anything about the Bible and you've heard stories about Jesus, you've heard about him feeding the multitude. Well, that's this story. It's in all 4 Gospels, and not very many stories are in all 4. There's so many life lessons in this story, and we certainly don't have time to go through all of them. And you'll get some that I didn't get, and I'll get some that you didn't get. But as I think through this story, there are just a few that jump out at me, and I want to call your attention to these, and then you be thinking of what you get out of this story that speaks to you. But one of the first things that spoke to me is Jesus has just heard that his cousin was beheaded. The disciples are tired. Some of them haven't eaten. Have you ever had that situation where you were just worn out and you couldn't wait to get in your chair, turn the TV on, maybe take a nap, rest, and the phone rings, or somebody rings the doorbell. Somebody comes over. Hey, can you talk for just a minute? And we want to go, no, I don't want to talk for just a minute. I want to rest. So when Jesus saw this crowd of people, did he say, oh no, send these people away. We need some rest? No, he didn't. It says that, what exactly did it say? He had what? Compassion for them. He even considered them like sheep without a shepherd. In other words, they didn't know which way to go. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know where to turn. They didn't know how to help themselves. So he helped them. Boy, that speaks volumes to me. Because hopefully I'm not the only person out there. I'm sure some of you are the same way, that we can get pretty caught up in our daily routine, can't we? We can get distracted. We can get preoccupied. And we miss the people around us. I know I do. So 2 parts of that life lesson is, one, I'm thankful that Jesus had compassion for me when I don't deserve it and couldn't earn it. But the other part of that is I need to have compassion for people around me. So maybe every day I need to get up and say, okay, how can I show compassion today? Who will come into my life today? It might be a total stranger, or maybe a family member, maybe a friend, maybe that person that serves me at a restaurant, maybe that policeman that I get to talk to, maybe a first responder, I don't know. But somebody will be in my life that I can show compassion to. So what can I do? How are some ways I can show compassion? How are some ways you show compassion? Boy, there's a life lesson that we ought to be more compassionate to the people around us, even people we don't necessarily know or people we don't necessarily agree with. Show compassion. The next life lesson I get out of all of this is the story with the little boy. Who was this kid? We don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us who he was, where he came from, who his parents were. Y'all, there is a squirrel about 5 feet from me. I'm just praying he's not going to jump up in my lap here in a minute. You may hear me speak in tongues, okay? Which I never have done before. I really want to know where he went. I think he's sitting at the picnic table with me. Oh, that's a first for Truth from the Trail. Anyway, this kid with the sack lunch, I mean, here he is with two sardines and a couple of dinner rolls. You know, he's got 2 loaves, two fish and 5 loaves. Y'all, if I had been Andrew brought this kid to Jesus with this little sack lunch. If I'd been Andrew, I would have said, kid, that's nice, appreciate it, that's awful kind of you, but we can't use that. You see this mob of people we've got to feed? That won't even barely feed you, much less all these other people. I would have been so quick to dismiss him, and let's be honest, most of us would have. I don't have a whole lot I can offer God. I don't know how, maybe you've got a whole lot more than me. I don't have much I can offer him. No great wealth, no great talent, no great influence. All I can offer him is what little I've got. And if he was willing to take 2 little fish, little dried fish, and 5 little cakes of bread, and he was willing to take it and bless it, and look what he did with it. Boy, that speaks to me that no matter how little I have to offer, I need to offer it to Jesus. And then the last thing, before the squirrel and I go do something else, is the 12 baskets of leftovers. There's a verse in 1 John chapter 1, verse 9. It says that Jesus came that we might have life and have it more abundant. In other words, everything that Jesus gives, there's leftovers. There's no way I could use up all the blessings he has for me. And there's no way you'll ever know all the blessings he has for you. He does things in just extreme measures. His love's extreme, his gifts are extreme, his mercies are extreme, etc., etc., etc. Aren't you glad? Boy, I am. What else did you get out of this story? There's so much. Boy, rich story, and such a positive story of Jesus feeding the multitudes. It says there were 5,000 men. That doesn't count women and children. So it's fair to say there were 15,000 people there on 2 fish and 5 little pieces of bread. Boy, what could God do with what we have to give him? A lot. Well, I think I'm done with hiking for the day. And as I said, this place has a great disc golf course, so I'm going to throw the disc golf a little bit, play 18 holes. You find something good to do, and I'll see you next time on Truth from the Trail.